Okay, guys. So I want to talk to you about something. It's been about a month since Trump's state visit to the UK back in September. It was the second in a matter of weeks, which in itself was unusual. Well, there, as I'm sure you may have heard, he attended the Windsor State banquet. It was conspicuously missing its mascot celebrities, perhaps the people in Hollywood or West London suddenly realised they had to be somewhere else that night. When I saw the footage on TV of these oligarchs and business moguls meeting, I thought, great. When does these people getting together ever end well for us peasants? There were a lot of influential people there that you may or may not have noticed. Under one roof, we had the king, the president, the gatekeepers of tech, the priests of finance, all with enough money and influence to redraw the map of our world. It kind of sounds like the start to a bad joke, but stay with me because this guest list reads like the gatekeepers to our future. I don't think this was just a dinner. This was the world's strangest board meeting. It's diplomacy served up with fine dining. Because what do you really get when monarchs, moguls, and machine builders meet in a castle? Well, they label it a banquet, but I see a blueprint for our future, one that we aren't getting a say in deciding. So who was in the room, quietly shaping our futures? Firstly, the tap everyone's thirsty for, NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang, the GPU king. There's a feeling in the air that compute power is the new oil, or he controls the tap. No chips, no project. He decides which projects find capacity and which wither away into fantasy. So who gets access to the water in a drought? Which projects suddenly find allocation of a much needed resource after an event like this? Well, that's up to Jensen. Next up, there was Sam Altman, OpenAI CEO, the architect of ChatGPT. He seems to decide what it interprets as reality and what's not, the parameters it can operate within and those that it won't allow. And of course, Microsoft was in the room. Let's not forget nearly everything digital rides inside someone's cloud. If every data point stored must cross your bridge, you control the tolls and the access. So do empires still need borders if they already own the roads? That's Satya Nadella, Microsoft CEO. Most roads in the digital city cross his toll bridge. Now the real financing weight. BlackRock CEO Larry Fink, Citigroup CEO Jane Fraser, Bank of America CEO Brian Mahoynan, Blackstone CEO Stephen Schwarzman, who, might I add, was seated next to Prime Minister Keir Starmer. These individuals are the finance and banking priests of the modern world. Capital allocation can be modern excommunication. If your project gets funding, if it doesn't, a nod here, a signature there, and entire sectors bloom or starve, all with the scratch of a pen. And of course, there was Rupert Murdoch, seated next to Keir Starmer's key advisor. I can only imagine the small talk when Trump is suing the Murdoch press for billions in the US currently. Regardless, Murdoch holds the keys to a media empire. They don't only tell you what to think, they set the narrative. They're deciding what makes it to the headlines and what you don't even know you're not discussing. Then there was a more interesting attendee, Richard Moore, the now ex-MI6 chief, the only serving member of the service who was officially named in public, by the way. When spy agencies are meant to model adversaries and social platforms model users, if you put them together, you can model a population. Opinions, movement, money, messages. Is that public safety or a programmable society? He doesn't need a microphone. He operates in the silence, behind the scenes. If social media platforms write the rules of free speech, does the spy chief negotiate the rules of silence? What disappears? What never trends? Are they building back doors or velvet corridors into our personal devices? Apparently, he's equipped with some frontline foreign policy expertise and diplomatic skill. This is why at the time of the banquet, it had him at the top of the shortlist to become UK's man in Washington, given that the previous UK ambassador to the US, Lord Mandelson, was sacked over his links to none other than notorious Jeffrey Epstein. But then to follow, surprisingly days after the royal banquet, he resigned from his position at MI6 and ruled himself out of the position as the US ambassador. I wonder why. I wonder where he's headed now. Perhaps he was given a job offer, somewhere in the private sector perhaps, possibly by one of the banquet's guests. We'll see. Then there's Emma Walmsley, CEO of GSK, a British multinational pharmaceutical company. In a world where population health data is a crown jewel, things like prescriptions, diagnoses, genomics, even outcomes, it's a golden pipeline. If trusted partners get privileged access into national data sets, does it get us better medicine? Well, then there was the energy allocation. None of this plays out without it. AI consumes a vast amount. BP CEO and Shell CEO were both present, and they weren't there for the dessert. They were more than likely there to provide the megawatts. If compute is the new oil, energy is the master key. Do long-term purchase power agreements quietly make data centers priority customers while the cities get rationed? There were a dozen more eyebrow-raising individuals that attended the event. Tim Cook, CEO of Apple. Ruth Porat, President and Chief Investment Officer at Google. Charles Woodburn, CEO of Bay Systems, a UK-based defence, aerospace and security company. Of the 160 who attended, these are the ones we know about. Who were the ones that didn't make the headlines, didn't walk the red carpet, but came in through the back? The ones the media doesn't publish their pictures. Perhaps they are even the individuals that these very influential guests answer to. In saying that, I find it interesting that there was no Elon. After not being invited to the White House dinner either, hosted by Trump days earlier, which many of the same individuals had attended, including Bill Gates, which I know raised more than a few eyebrows in and out of the MAGA crowd. Very interesting. But individually, these people hold the keys to the kingdom, to reality. So what does it mean when you bring them all together? What kind of future are they building for us in the shadow of this state banquet? Now the really interesting part, the morning after. £31 billion in corporate pledges under a UK-US tech prosperity banner, roughly 41 billion US. This was flowing in from Microsoft, committing £22 billion on the record for a UK AI data center construction build, along with NVIDIA committing up to 120,000 Blackwell GPUs, and a £500 million stake in Josh Payne's only 21-month-old startup Nscale. He's doing well. And we can't forget Google rolling out a fresh $5 billion UK build anchored by a new London area data centre. What else got signed that never hit the headlines? Deals made between these companies rarely see the light of day, but should they? When it seems to be our future that they're determining? Is this coincidence or choreography? In rooms where a shoulder rub moves billions and your inconvenient civil liberties become bargaining chips, maybe the after party was just the best networking event you'll ever attend. Meanwhile, outside the banquet hall, even as an outsider looking in, the country feels agitated, conflicted. Huge crowds gather as immigration surges. I've seen the footage of the massive protests, with overwhelmingly staggering numbers of attendees. I've seen some claiming into the millions. This is a facial recognition and data gathering architect's wet dream. Then the whole 15-minute city saga. Governments and councils downplay it all, saying it's just traffic filters and local planning. But I think most see force perimeters, control, and an end to freedom of movement, and the beginning of some CCP-style digital identity. Oxford's proposals and trials became a national litmus test. A few see livability, most see corralling and enough of it to spark repeated protests and official statements trying to swat down the rumours. When a population is already primed to see digital fences, how easy is it to lay new ones? This brings us to the real architect behind the curtain, one that isn't interested in pageantry or photo ops. I'm talking about Palantir. While cameras chase the red carpet, the UK government quietly unveiled a new strategic partnership with Palantir to unlock billions for defence AI. Defence AI. The reporting I could find pegs it at £750 million. This brings it up to £1.5 billion from the previous £750 million deal in the UK expansion and investments. That's a hell of an investment. That's not a photo op. That's creating a pipeline. If you win behind the scenes, you don't need the podium. Now, think about the big picture. Immigration protests at scale, control narratives in the air, councils trialling movement shaping schemes, and a fresh 9-figure defence data partnership for a firm whose entire proposition is to vacuum your life into databases, turn citizens into profiles, and profiles into points, push commands downstream. This sounds like an incoming digital ID to me. And then, while I was putting this video together, a little over a week later, Starmer came out and announced a mandatory digital ID. I'm sure if you attended these protests we spoke about earlier, your face is in a database somewhere, just waiting to be linked to your mandatory digital ID. Is this smart statecraft, or the launch of something more sinister? Was this perfect timing or perfectly timed? Well, put all this together and I'm more than a tad concerned about where our future's headed. Was Windsor a harmless pageant or a board meeting and networking event for the technocratic New World Order? And was the money and headlines next day just coincidence? Or did we watch a quiet coronation of a future that we are all along for the ride? A future where GPUs, cloud infrastructure, capital, narrative, and control align under one roof. I'm not telling you the answer. I don't have it. I'm just a guy asking questions. And the most important question: are you comfortable sitting on the sidelines while these people decide your future?